Hi, this is Amy at amycommonsense-southern.com. Today I'm going to talk to you about roasting a chicken. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I upload 2 to 3 times a week. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. So to make today's chicken, the first thing we need obviously is a chicken. This one came from Lowe's grocery store, and it is a Springer Mountain Farms chicken. I don't know if there's Lowe's where you are, but I've seen Springer Mountain chicken products in other stores. As a matter of fact, I think if you go to Earth Fare and buy a roasted chicken, they make a big deal out of how it's a Springer Mountain Farms chicken. So I need a chicken. This one's about a 3.5 pound chicken. I need some butter. You might want olive oil instead, but I like butter and how it makes a crispy golden crust on your chicken. Then you need an onion and a lemon, some garlic cloves, and some salt and pepper. Now you could use any seasoning you want on this. I've done this with lemon pepper seasoning. I've done it with Italian herbs, herbs de Provence, Cajun seasoning, but really my favorite one, and the one that I think makes best leftovers for doing things like chicken salad and chicken sandwiches, is just plain salt and pepper, and I'll show you how I do that. For equipment, I need, of course, a cutting board, a good knife, and I'm going to use my Creuset pot. Now this pot is not the deep stock pot like you would make chili. This is just a little bit more shallow one. It comes with a lid, but I am not going to be using the lid today because I want the chicken to brown. The reason why I'm using this pot is because I wanted a pot that after I take it out of the oven, or take the chicken out of the oven, there's something I'm going to do on the top of the stove that I want you to see, and you would not want to do that in a glass 13 by 9 inch dish or a stoneware casserole dish. You want something that can go on the top of the stove. If you want to see how to make the easiest roasted chicken ever, and it's so tasty and fun to do, stick with me. So to get this chicken started, what I'm going to do is slice up about half of an onion. And it doesn't really matter how you slice this onion up exactly. You can do it in chunks if you like. You can do it in rings, or however you like to do it. I just like to do it in rings like this. And what the onion is for is putting this in the bottom of my dish. I'm not using any kind of a rack. And I guess the reason why I use the onion, it's kind of coming apart on me there. The reason why I use the onion is sort of really 2 things. One is the caramelized onions we're going to make towards the end of this taste absolutely amazing, and so I need the onions for that. The other thing is so that you don't have the chicken just sitting right smack on the very bottom of this pan. So what I'm going to do with this onion is just layer it in the bottom of my Creuset dish. Just like this. And while I'm working on that, I'm going to go ahead and put about 2.5 tablespoons of butter in the microwave. While my butter was melting in the microwave, I went ahead and finished slicing up these onions and putting them in the bottom of this pan. Again, the reason for that is 2 things. One, I want some kind of a rack. Since I'm not using a metal rack, I want these onions to create a rack underneath the chicken. And second, I'm going to make a caramelized onion lemon sauce with these onions when the chicken is finished cooking. So the chicken has been taken out of its package that I showed you. I rinsed it and I thoroughly dried it. Make sure that you also clean your kitchen sink really well since you washed the chicken in there. But anyway, I'm just going to tuck these wings back, and all I'm trying to do here is just to keep the legs and the wings from splaying out while it cooks. If you keep the parts of the chicken closer in, it cooks more evenly. So I've tucked those little wings in. I've also taken a lemon that I've sliced in half. I'm going to use the other half for something else and put this lemon inside the chicken. And also I have 3 garlic cloves that I've got whole that I'm just going to put those inside the chicken as well for flavoring. Then I have a piece of twine. This piece of twine I showed in the beginning of the video, but I didn't really mention anything about it. So what it is for is to hold the little legs together, so that as the chicken cooks with the legs together, it kind of keeps everything closer in and cooks more evenly. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie those legs together. There are a couple of different ways you can do that, depending on the length of twine that you give yourself. Some people truss the whole chicken. I don't really feel like we need to do that just for this operation, so I'm just going to tie these 2 legs together. Just tie those so that they keep the chicken held in together. And we're going to cut those off later, so it doesn't really matter how those look. But I just double knotted it so that it will stay together there. Okay, that's perfect. Next thing I'm going to do is move this chicken over here to the pan with the onions so that I can season it and put the butter on. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over, and I'm going to take this away. Okay, and here's that melted butter. And I'm just going to brush this all over the chicken. Now you can get in here with your hands if you want to do that too. Sometimes when the butter first comes out of the microwave, it's super hot, and so I want to start out with a brush just as it cools slightly. But think about, well, what parts of this chicken do I need to get the butter on? Well, you're going to want to get this butter all over the chicken. Any part that you can see this skin, you want that butter. And because we dried the chicken off thoroughly with paper towels, and I'm not trying to be wasteful, I just don't want to spread salmonella all over the place by having a bunch of towels and things that need to be washed. But since we dried this off thoroughly with paper towels, it is going to crisp up nicer than if we just rinsed it off and put it in this pan soaking wet. So again, putting that butter all over it. Now, as far as Weight Watchers points goes, I count this exactly the way I would the points for rotisserie chicken. So like the breast, if you take all of that skin off, would be 0. The legs, wings, thighs are in those 3-4 point ranges, just like they would be if you got one of those rotisserie chickens from the grocery store. So I'm just making sure that I've got this thoroughly all over the chicken, and that was 2.5 tablespoons of chicken that I had. So I'm going to go wash my hands really quickly because next I want to touch my salt and pepper shakers, and I don't want to touch those with chickeny hands. So now I'm ready to season the chicken, and I'm just going to use some freshly ground pepper. And I'm using one of those little Peugeot pepper grinders, and I have 2 of these actually. One is a slightly smaller version that I keep on the table. I just want to show you this knot. You see how coarse that pepper is? If I just tighten that a little bit, you'll see that the pepper comes out just a slight bit finer. So you can adjust how roughly ground or finely ground you want your pepper on this. So I'm just going to add some pepper here. Again, you can use more or less. I'm not measuring this amount of pepper. Then I want to put on some salt. This is the Himalayan pink salt that I have in a grinder. And I'm just going to put liberally salt this guy. And let me talk about some options here. So if you wanted to use something other than the salt and pepper on your chicken, this is where you would have put on your Cajun seasoning, your lemon pepper, your dried herbs. That would be the time that you do this. Some other options here is some people like to put like a stalk of rosemary or thyme inside the chicken along with that lemon. Anything you want to do there is fine. You really can't mess this up. The key here is, of course, preparing the outside of the chicken by having it dry and then putting some kind of butter or oil on it. So last thing I do before I stick this in the oven is I just want to put a little bit of water in here, and what I'm looking for is enough water that if I tilt the pan slightly, yeah, I can see the water come on over here to the other side. So that's ready to go in the oven. You could also put in some white wine as well. And yes, the chicken will give off some oil, but I don't want these onions to stick to the bottom of the pan. Now that I have the chicken seasoned the way I want it, what I want to do is put this in a 425-degree oven. Now, it cooks about an hour and a half, but at 1 hour, I'm going to take it out and check it just to see if I need more liquid in the bottom. And I can also, at that time, check the doneness by moving this leg slightly, because the leg joint and how it moves gives you some indication of whether or not the chicken is ready. We can also baste it a little bit at that point as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the 425-degree oven, and in an hour, we'll see what we've got. So at this point, the chicken has been cooking an hour, and I've taken it out to give it a look, and I can see where my onions are browning around the edges. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water into this pan just to keep that from sticking, and I'm going to put it right back in for another 30 minutes. So I just took the chicken out of the oven. I think you can see how beautiful and brown it is, and the outside texture of it is very crispy. So I want to move this over to a plate. Now this can be a little bit awkward and tricky sometimes because you're dealing with a hot chicken and you don't want to touch it. So anyway, I have just put a fork inside of my chicken. I'm just letting it drain a little bit so that I can safely move it over to that platter. And what I'm left with here, I'm just going to take these couple of pieces of skin out and put those aside. We don't need those. onion came with it. Now what I have in the bottom of this pan are these gorgeous chicken and lemon juices. Some of the lemon juice came out because when I put my fork in to get the chicken out of the pan, some lemon juice came out. So what we have left are the gorgeous onions and chicken and lemon juices in the bottom of this pot. So what I'm gonna do is move this over to the stove and cook this on medium for just a couple of minutes until it reduces, and I'll be right back to show you what we have. So we thought you might want to actually see what this looks like reducing this down a little bit. I haven't added anything to what was in the pan when I took the chicken out. I've just put this pan on medium heat on top of my stove, and I'm waiting for this to just reduce a little bit. My chicken is out of the oven, and in a little bit after this cools down, I'll be ready to carve it and serve it for dinner. One thing I wanted to mention to you is that practicing this chicken is in a way practicing for Thanksgiving. We really cooked a teeny tiny turkey here if you think about it. So if you can handle cooking this little chicken, then cooking a turkey at Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holiday you want is not going to be any big deal at all. As a matter of fact, I will do a turkey demo video closer to the holidays for you. But I was also thinking that something that would be really great to serve with this would be the rosemary roasted potatoes that I did a few videos ago, and I'll link that in the description box below and put it in one of the little cards in the corner. But even though this cooks at 425 and those potatoes cook at a slightly lower temperature, once you take this chicken out of the oven for the last time, you could go ahead and have that pan of potatoes ready to go into your oven. And just go ahead and turn that temperature down at that time, and that wouldn't be any big deal that the oven's a little hotter than you want it. You just have to keep an eye on your potatoes, and the oven will cool down while the potatoes cook. But I went ahead and took this out. You can see where I took the string off the legs there, and how that leg moves freely in the joint is what I was referring to earlier. So I took the pan full of the chicken juices and the chicken, and onions, and move that over to the stove and just reduce that for a few minutes. And what you're left with is this really beautiful onion sauce. It almost has a marmalade-like consistency to it. And so I just serve that right along with the side of the chicken. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to make your easy, perfect roasted chicken. Join me again at Amy Common Sense Southern. Give me a like, click the subscription, and that little notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. Until next time, bye-bye.